singing. I'm singing.
What's up, guys? It's Sufu Sus, and I am sitting here doing a quick stream, I suppose. I been thinking about this a little bit. I wanted to do a stream about the AMC screen unseen movies. I wanted to do one earlier today about the first one I saw yesterday on May 3rd, and then of course the one I just got done watching today. I really would like to do a live reaction of that after I get done and get outside the theater and just kind of talk about it. But the thing is, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I'm too old. I don't know how to do that. And so it's like a 30 or 40 minute drive from the theater that's actually showing it for me. So, but truth be told, here where I live, it's almost like a 30 or 40 minute drive wherever you go. So it don't matter. Like, I'm used to it. But during that time, I get a chance to sit there and think about it and kind of hype myself up about the movie or think about the different whatever. Think about all the random things I can talk about when it comes to the movie. But in the end, I'm just going to pop on here and be like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know how I'm going to talk about the movie, but we're going to go to it at some point. I do want to say thank you for anyone that's actually here checking this out. But I would also sit there and say, why are you here? Because I need you guys to go and check out the two that are currently streaming right now. Two people I'm going to call out. Uneducated Possum. So shout out to Uneducated Possum. He is a wonderful streamer, really up-tempo, upbeat, plays a lot of Yakuza beat-em-up style of games. I guess if you want to call it a beat-em-up game, I really don't know if that's necessarily a beat-em-up game. You should check him out. But he's cool. He's got a lot of energy. He's very nice too. And he's good to his community, and he's very giving. So I definitely recommend checking out his and Sarah, Sraah. I will probably put this into the comments so you guys can check them out. Check her stream out. I know that right now she's kind of waiting before she gets to the next game, but she's a stroke survivor. Glad that she's here to do this. Check out her stream. She jams a lot of variety of games. I know right now she wants to get to Phasmophobia at some point whenever they decide to do the updates where we can customize ourselves and be more than just generic avatars. I feel like I want to say what I'm really thinking, but then again, if I do, it will be maybe taken the wrong way. At some point, I will build the courage to just be like, whatever. Hey, what's up, Lancet? How's it going? Glad to see you pop in. And another person that I would tell you guys to go check out who's currently streaming right now as well is Andy_ZEE_. He's grinding. This brother's been grinding. Like yesterday, I think he did a 12-hour stream, and now currently he's doing I don't know, he's like an 8 hours in. This guy crazy. But I know he's working his way up and trying to reach certain goals. And I know that Sarah's also trying to meet certain goals, and Uneducated Possum as well. So I'm always willing to help those guys out. Because honestly, for me, we just passing time. We're going to talk, and we just going to pass time. But I will say one of the random things about what's going on. Okay, Lance, I'll no. I'm glad everything's going well for you. Thank you for the invite. I will definitely check it out, and I'll let you know for sure. Absolutely. So one of the things I want to talk about is just cause like I do my screen handle. I've popped into a few streams within the last few days, whether there are streamers who have like hundreds of viewers, thousands of viewers, or you know, smaller streamers as well who can hold, 5 views, 10 views, 50 views, 20 views, whatever. They're all entertaining. They're all entertaining. They got great stories in their own life too, as well. And every time I say something to them, they try to figure out my name, and it like you hear the pause. They just like Su sus Sufu sus, and I'm just like, just call me sus. But I'll explain my thoughts on how we got to this point. All right. So we all know who Confucius is. Confucius is a philosopher, an Asian philosopher. Yes, Confucius, Lancet. That's exactly. That's the way we go, Confucius. But we all know who Confucius is. Confucius is a philosopher, an Eastern philosopher, really, really popular one. And I was like, well, what can I do to kind of be like that? Kind of. So originally I went with Confucius. Confucius, meaning confuse and sus, putting it together. So I was the king of being confused and sus, which is also very true as well. And, at work, when I was working in training and working with like the newer project managers, they would always call me sensei. I don't know if it's because it's an Asian thing. It's because it's an Asian thing. Pretty sure. But they'd always call me sensei. Or what I would take is like Sifu. So I went with Sifu Sus being like the master of sus. And now, also the fact that Sifu is actually a more of a Chinese Japanese terminology. I am Vietnamese American, but Vietnamese, and have not been in touch with my own particular group. Seafood. Yes, I love seafoods. Actually, that's the way to go. I think that's how I will tell everyone. Just call me Seafood Sus. I think that will work. Because if you get seafood anywhere outside of the coast, it's very sus. And the fact that I lived almost in the middle of the country seems very sus that it would be seafood. Seafood. But Sifu, the Vietnamese term for Sifu is Sifu, which is why I went with Sufu Sus. Sufu Sus. But there's no Vietnamese word for sus, but we're just going to go with Seafood Sus. So the best way to say it, Seafood Sus. Lancet has termed it. We will call it official today. Today. All right. So AMC Screen Unseen. If you guys don't know what that is, every month, maybe twice a month, AMC does a showing on Mondays. Last time they did one on Sunday. And they will preview, they will do a movie that hasn't been released yet, and usually about a week or two before it comes out. So the movies I've gotten to see under these circumstances are I Swear and A Spoonful of Chocolate. And I feel like there's one more. Oh, and Normal. All three movies, all three very interesting. Two of them I liked. The other one, not quite my taste. But I recommend it. They do it at a little less a discounted price, so you're not paying full price to actually see these movies. And it's cool because you get to go into the movies, and I look at it as I get to check out these movies, and I have no expectations because I have no idea what they're going to actually play. The thing is, there's a thing called Reddit. They're guessing. We're all guessing. I'm on ChatGPT sitting there going, it's an hour and 55-minute movie, and it's coming out sometime in 2026. Yeah. And then we'll be like, Mortal Kombat, 1996. That's not 2026, dude. What the? If you guys don't use AI, there's a thing called prompt engineering. Got to get good with it. or you'll never get it right. I'm just saying. But got the chance to go hang out and see a movie that was not on my radar, but eventually became on my radar because my friend was like, I really want to see The Sheep Detectives. And The Sheep Detectives just happened to be the one that showed on May 3rd at 2:00 at the AMC closest to you. Hopefully not the closest one to me because it's too small. But Sheep Detectives is a 2026 mystery comedy film directed by Cal Balda, and written by Craig Mazin, based on a 2005 novel, Three Bags Full by Leon Swan. I hope I said those names right. I feel like I didn't. I feel like I butchered them. They'll probably never see this, but I do send my sincere apologies. All right. This movie, if you guys don't know it, it's about a nerf herder. Yeah, it's a nerf herder. This is the part where you insert the Peter Griffin scene where he punches the dude, or one of the scenes from Family Guy where the dude punches the dude and just kind of looks at him and just like, that's our term. That's our term. You can't use that term. It's about a shepherd. It's about a shepherd who's raising his herd of sheep. And what he does is he's just sitting there and he tells murder mystery stories to his herd of sheep every single day. Out in England, I would imagine, in the middle of nowhere, just doing his thing. And now he doesn't know, but they can all talk to each other and they all have the discussions like, who did it? It was this person. It was the maid. It was Professor Plum with chopsticks in the laboratory. It is always Professor Plum in the laboratory with chopsticks. If you don't believe me, you play with me. I promise you that's what it'll be. But it's about Hugh Jackman, who plays a guy named George, who's a herder, a shepherd, who actually ends up getting murdered. And he gets murdered, and his flock of sheep had to figure out who did it. They ended up trying to figure out who murdered the one and only person that's taken care of them for their entire lives. But you get a chance to see the different sheeps out there. And it really kind of starts off with George talking about the different sheeps. Which actually, before I really get into this, I'll go ahead and say how I look at this. So this is what we call the press play series. In a sense, I will not actually go through the entire movie where I'm just going to describe every possible thing that's going to happen to you, because I just do not have the memory to last for this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and point out things that stuck out to me, things that really kind of resonated with me, and probably give you two perspectives if I can, if it needs it. But for the most part, I'll pick out things that I like, pick out things that I felt, were kind of interesting, maybe weren't something that really hit home to me, and just kind of give you my opinion. But ultimately, I'll let you know whether I would press play on that movie. But in the end, I really want to know if you would press play on that movie. So going back to the movie. So George kind of goes over and talks about all his different sheeps. So there is Lily, who is voiced by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is the smartest sheep of the herd, a brown sheep who is really going to be your main protagonist, is going to be the one that's really going to be there to try to help everything. And you get to see her journey of growth. And he talks about her. Another one that you hear about is Sebastian, who is the black Icelandic sheep, who is really kind of the loner, the one that George says that he is more like that. Like that's who he is out of all the sheep. Now that one is actually played by Bryan Cranston. You also get to see a few other sheep Cloud, Mopple, Sir Richfield, Zora, Reggie, and Ronnie, the twins, who like to bash things. And they try to bash things, but in reality, they can't really. Every time they try to go bash things, but Lily stops them because she's like, you got to have reasons to bash things. But I think she's just, kind of a cock block because, I mean, a party pooper. I guess a party pooper is probably a better choice of words because I think they should just bash whatever because they saw a shiny truck and they were just like, we're going to bash it. And I was like, yeah, no, perfect reason. Just do it. And it didn't even have to be a truck. Could have been a car. If it's shiny, should bash it. Even if it was my car. I'm just saying. Don't take the fun out of it. But he goes and talks about each one of the sheeps and their little kind of quirks. Then he gets to explain what a winter sheep is. Now, I didn't know this, and I don't know if this is a thing, so somebody needs to fact check me. Somebody can tell me. But apparently, if most sheeps are born in the springtime, I'm guessing, and that if you were born in the winter time, you were like an outcast. Like they hated you, and you. Like, I don't know why they would hate you, but they hated you. They just like, you are a winter sheep. Go away. Whoa. Like, oh, I felt so bad for the winter sheep. Like that tugged at my heartstrings quite a bit, man. All right. So besides the sheep, you're obviously, the sheep aren't going to be the ones that actually murdered George Hardy. So you actually get a chance to meet the people in town, which is a very small town, a very nice little kept town. You get to meet the cop who's played by Nicholas Braun, who plays Officer Tim Derry, who's very, very dumb. I think they call him the local idiot, but he's the cop, the policeman. Like the clumsy local policeman. The only policeman in this town who's dumb. You also get to meet Caleb, who's another fellow shepherd from across the way. Apparently, this is where George is loaning land, leasing out some of his land to Caleb, but he also thinks that Caleb is not very good at what he does. But Caleb's got his flock across the way. You also run into Beth, who is played by Hung Chau. And she just hates him. She hates George. We really don't know why she hates George. She just hates him. And literally, the scenes that you see with her in it, she has this scowl. Hates him. I don't know, like hates him like an ex-boyfriend. Like she's looking at him and just like he reminds her of an ex-boyfriend. Like that's how it felt throughout the entire. That was the vibe I was getting. You also run into Reverend Hillcoat, who's the priest, obviously of the actual town. Apparently, there's some beef between him and George as well. You're not 100% sure what the story is between the beef of them, and I'm not really going to tell you what it is, obviously, because I really don't want you to spoil the movie. But there is kind of a little beef between him and the church, and the fact that he doesn't go to the church. But he does show up to the church this one time to drop a load of money, just like a whole roll of money. And you're really just kind of looking at it like, what? Why? And then, where did you get that? That's a lot of cash. Of course, it wasn't like dollar bills or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure it was way more than the dollar bill, because just how the dollar bill is kind of done its ups and downs. You also run into Ham, who's the butcher, which obviously you know George is gonna hate the butcher, because the butcher butchers sheep, butchers whoever. So there's like this natural rivalry, this natural hate. And then there is Postwoman Joe, who literally is kind of like the the town gossip. If that's how you want to respond, say that she's like the town gossip, the one that obviously is handing out the mail, but also will tell secrets. Like she was talking to Beth, and she was telling Beth, it's like, yeah. So George was sending this letter, and it's scented out to somebody, and we don't know, some girl that's not from this country, from the U.S. And Beth ended up stealing the letter, and then just kind of reading it and pocketing it. So they were just throwing little clues out. That, for the most part, is most of the characters. Now to go on to the cool thing about the movie. It's a murder comedy, murder mystery comedy. I gotcha. I just don't. Well, I say a. I don't know what I was going to think. I was thinking there. Not sure how I was going to finish that thought, but I don't really see very many mystery movies nowadays. Like, I feel like you don't see them enough, and I don't know if it's because a lot of them are just implemented into like typical movies, action movies, thrillers, or whatever, and it just naturally becomes kind of like a murder mystery movie. But like true murder mystery movies that make me think of are like the Knives Out series. Knives Out 1, The Glass Onion, and then I don't remember what the newest one is. But I think of the Knives Out movies, and I wouldn't necessarily say that this particular movie really went that deep into the Knives Out movies, like the Knives Out movies, but it was definitely a mystery in its own rights. I want to say it's more geared towards like the younger demographic, right, for kids. But as an adult, I do feel that you still will have an enjoyment in watching and checking out this particular murder mystery as well. And it's also kind of neat to see the sheep kind of overcome everything to help the humans actually solve, and actually help the policeman, help Tim actually solve the mystery, because he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. It's just not. So yeah, absolutely 100% a kids movie, one that families should check out for sure. And in saying so, you're obviously going to get the CG animals and how they react, their emotions on their face, and how they talk. And that's one of the highlights that I actually really liked about the movie, is just the different characters and who they are. Now, there is one thing I do want to talk about for sure before I forget, is voicing. So some of these characters are actually voiced by a lot of people who are very, very like popular actors, like Patrick Stewart, Bryan Cranston, Regina Hall, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, like insane names. And I've always had an issue when it comes to this. And I say this because I don't know if you necessarily need like A-star actors to play voices in movies. And I don't know if you guys feel that same way or not, but if you think about like Transformer 1, where they had, I want to say, the brother of Thor, or actually Thor, maybe it was Thor, actually playing the main voice, and they also had Scarlett Johansson playing a secondary voice, or even Borderlands 4, a beloved video game for myself. They had Jack Black playing as Claptrap, and so on and so forth. Like when Mario Brothers, you got the voice of Chris Pratt playing the main character, then also Danny Glover as Yoshi. But like, you're also kind of like, really, all you really say is Yoshi? Like, is there really a need? Like, I get the whole, it was cool and kind of funny whenever the Guardians of the Galaxy had Vin Diesel just say Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. But the thing of the matter is like, I feel like that novelty can go. It was cute the first time around, because you think Vin Diesel, oh yeah, I know Vin Diesel is BA, but he does all these action movies, and he does all these lines, and he says cool things. And all you have him say is, I am Groot. Like, the novelty of that is actually kind of cool. But I feel like it overstays itself. Like it's okay. You don't need like it would have been nice to have Optimus Prime actually be the voice of Optimus Prime. I don't know necessarily about Mario, but you would have had really good voice actors or voice actors who actually just do nothing but voice act. I think you would have been fine, like perfectly fine. Now, if you're just wanting to have iconic voices in there, Patrick Stewart's iconic voice, also Morgan Freeman, um, oh my gosh, James Earl Jones back in the day. Like I get that, but in a lot of aspects, I don't think it's necessary, especially when it comes to just trying to like voice like certain characters, unless like they just have like this love and childhood dream that they want to be this particular person. So kudos to them if that's the case. All right. So I do like the fact that this movie tackles a good chunk of just topics that kind of caught my eye, like death, of course, when it comes to George Hardy and the Shepherd. Thanks, overcoming your fears, overcoming the unknown. It like I think those are good lessons and good values to like show kids, obviously the audience that they're gearing to. That and also never to judge a book by its cover because you don't know bullying. Because when I tell you when they were bullying the winter sheep, oh my god, Woo! They were ripping the winter sheep so bad, and it's like Tiny Tim. The sheep is like Tiny Tim, and they are just ripping it. And I felt so bad, and it got so bad it was kind of uncomfortable. But they didn't go too far. I know. Like when I talked about a spoonful of chocolate, where they pushed racism and then they went a little bit too far, and they kept going and they kept going and they kept going. Like here, I do think that they did just enough to where you're just like, oh my god, what the hell? But they wouldn't believe anything that the winter sheep would say, anything the winter sheep would do. They would just say, hey, what would you know? You're just a winter sheep. Just because you were born in the winter, why are you getting so much hate? Which is also a representation, to me, a representation of skin color or however you want to gender yourself or however you want to define yourself as a particular person on this world. And I get it. And I felt bad. And they 100% accomplished the moment. Accomplished the moment. I also, like I was saying, overcoming things, death especially, death being a theme, a part of this is that, you know, the sheep at the very beginning really kind of believed that when they died, they became clouds, and that was the belief of the entire herd, except for maybe two, would be, except for two of them would obviously be Sir Richfield, which is Patrick Stewart, the most wise of them all, who's been through it all, who's seen it all, and I want to say Sebastian as well, except for Sebastian, you're not 100% sure because he doesn't really hang in with the entire crew, the entire herd of sheep. But death, once they actually find out that humans truly do die, and it's not just books, it's not just in the movies. For us, it's not just in the movies, but it's actually in books and stuff like that as well. It was sad to hear that they were like, well, humans really do die. Like they don't turn into clouds. And that tugged at the heartstrings too, because you can see their self-realization in their head that, you know, that time on this earth is finite, you know? Also, the thing is that they they do this thing that's kind of like Men in Black's like neuralizer, where they say we got to forget. So the entire herd's like, yeah, no, we agree, we got to forget. And then you hear them count down from 3, 2, 1, and then they just forget. And when it comes to dealing with the death aspect of things, like, yes, it's hard when you lose something in your life, whether it's a person and whether it's an animal, that pain is so overwhelming in the heart, in the body, that you would like to forget because it hurts so bad. Even a breakup, right? And it's a good lesson for just spread out around is that, in the end, there's a reason why we got to remember. There's a reason why we got to go through it. I apologize. There's a reason why we got to remember it. There's a reason why we got to go through it, because it makes us forget all the bad stuff and then just remember the good stuff. All the moments we did have together, of the ones that you've lost. But seeing that as a theme, an overall theme that they kind of touch on, I do kind of find that really, really cool. The concept of also overcoming their fears because there's a mission bigger than them to do. Like for them crossing the street, doing actually crossing an actual like gravel road. They've never been never been outside of their actual little safe home area, their safe zone. So being able to go past that and to go to town to actually research and find out what happened, who are the suspects on all this, is cool to see, because they had the ability to be able to throw some jokes in there, like these cows, or these, I say cows, these sheep can't actually cross the road, so they don't know why they're too afraid to cross, even if it's for figuring out why George, the person they love the most, is dead. And then you see a chicken cross the road, which is, come on, hilarious. You see that in the commercials, so if you actually should check out the commercials of the trailers and stuff, it's pretty funny. Oh, I did forget to mention there are actually two more characters, and that happens generally whenever they talk about the will, because obviously if a beloved shepherd gets murdered, what they deem murdered, especially in a small town like that, you gotta wonder why. And there's these rules, like these meta rules that goes with every single murder case, and they kind of point it out and they kind of outlined it out for people so that you can follow each and every single one of them. But you run into the fact that George has a daughter and a son that's currently in Africa, I want to say, and then a daughter who just happened to be in the town from the U.S. And the daughter, her name is Rebecca Hampstead, who's played by Molly Gordon. And throughout this movie, she's the prime suspect, mostly because you end up finding out that George has $30 million from a medical patent that he ended up selling to a big corporation that gave him $30 million, even though he decided to go ahead and stay in this camper in the middle of a field, taking care of a bunch of sheep, reading not horror movies, but reading murder mystery books, murder mystery books. So a man of simple life, I absolutely agree, because if I ever had that much money, I probably would just chill. As long as I had an internet, I feel like I would just go somewhere and just chill. And if all I had to do was, take care of sheep and then read murder mysteries to them, sounds pleasant. It sounds like a nice way to get away from all the all the troubles and issues of the world. And also, I think that as you get older, you also kind of feel sometimes the less interaction with other people is the better. But you actually have a local, or actually a reporter who actually comes from out of town named Elliot, who shows up as well, who was happening to look for a big story, a murder, like a story to actually make his career. So you also have that dynamic in there. So in a way, you're kind of following his his pursuit to try to become the like a big reporter because of this. But ultimately, you're really just following Tim, the policeman, because he's going to be the center of all, trying to figure out the actual murder case as far as the humans is concerned. They do a good job of cutting to the different characters in the towns to show that, you know, there is some sort of a motive that they could be the murderer or the mystery behind it. And I do think they hide that well enough. I ended up figuring out the murderer, but I wouldn't sit there and tell you that I knew exactly who it was. I figured out the idea of who it was. I just didn't figure out who it was. So I do think there is a little bit of a mystery to have fun and sit there and go through and be like, all right, cool. Let's figure out who did it, and this person has a reason, this person has a reason, this person has a reason. Sorry. But ultimately, I think all the actors that played into the movie, Tim or Nicholas Braun, who plays the policeman Tim, did a really good job of playing that kind of idiot, like clumsy police officer that happened to figure things out, and the way that they had the sheep like interact with the humans, and then also not just allowing it to just happen and not anybody really say anything, if that makes sense. Because there is a point where like there's obviously communication between two sheep, and they're actually doing, and one of them is actually doing something in front of a person, and this particular person was just like, I'm pretty sure that sheep was talking to that sheep right there. It was weird, but they left that. And so, you know, it didn't go sight unseen, right? But a lot of the things that they did made a lot of sense to me. And when I talk about like the buffer of suspension of disbelief, like this movie didn't give me any really rhyme or reason to fall out of that suspension of disbelief. Because obviously it's already silly enough as it is that you have a bunch of sheep who are trying to figure this out and how they interact and the different personalities. But I feel that everything that they did for the most part made sense. Now, did the very end fully make sense? Not quite. I will say that it does. There is a little bit of what is it? Writing liberty. I want to say writer's liberty that they got towards the very end there. That was a little convenient, but overall, I do think it had a pretty solid moment, and I'm not saying that I cried during the movie or that I had tears, but I was cutting some onions inside the movie theater, and a lot of people around me were upset that I was cutting onions inside the movie theater. So yeah. But for me, is it a press play? Would I press play on this movie? Yeah, I would. Absolutely. I would press play on this movie, and I would totally, if I had kids or anybody that I could just randomly bring into it, because I do think it's a good movie, I would totally do so. I hear comparably to like Paddington, which I've never seen, but it got really good ratings. Paddington did. It's kind of like that. It's kiddie enough, I feel, to satisfy your kids' needs and everything, but it's adult enough for you to be like, all right, I can bear myself through this entire movie and be fine. I think definitely deserves a press play for me. But more importantly, I would love to hear from you guys whether you guys thought it was a press play movie for sure. Now, on to this movie today, or yesterday, however you want to look at it, that I just saw on May the 4th, 2026 at the AMC Screen Unseen movie, The Wizard of the Kremlin, 2025 English language French political satire film directed by Oliver Assayas. I think that's think that's who it is. Co-wrote the screenplay with Emmanuel Carrera, based on a 2022 novel by, I am gonna mess up these names, Giuliano de Empoli, which follows the fictional government official Vadim Baranov, who was played by Paul Dano. In the final years of the Soviet Union and the rise of the young Vladimir Putin, who was played by Jude Law. All right. Let's get to this movie. Ultimately, this movie is about a young artist, Baranov, who starts off as a young artist and does plays, then eventually goes to become a TV producer. I want to say TV producer or something along with TV. And then he ultimately works his way up to where he is the spin doctor, the advisor to Vladimir Putin, helping Vladimir Putin rise to power in Russia. Now, let me preface this by saying I know nothing about, I would say, the majority of these these people. There are familiar names there that you hear, whereas Gorbachev or Putin, of course. There's a few names that you hear, and then there's a few events that happened in this movie that I don't really know anything about because either I was too young, but to be fair and to be truly honest, I'm not a big foreign affairs person, nor am I a very big political person. So I try to stay outside of that realm. So going into this movie, I didn't know what to expect, how to feel, whether it was true or it's false. Even though they say it's all fictional and it's just fictional storytelling, but I know there are hints of truth to. There's always some hints of truth or some at least true events that happened within all of this. So it was very interesting to kind of go through. I'll be honest with you. Once I heard the guesses that it was this movie and I looked up the trailer, I thought to myself, maybe I don't really want to check this movie out. Do I really want to check this movie out? Am I in the mood for this movie? Because it's not like it's an action movie or a thriller movie or a comedy or anything along that lines. It's literally a kind of a rise to power movie of sorts, where you just follow a person in his rise to I guess I'd say power. Hey, what's up, Unleashed Dance or Unleashed Ace? What's up, Ace? I'm sorry. These glasses are fake. I should be able to see closer, but you know what? They're fake. What's up, Unleashed Ace? Thanks for coming in and hanging out. Actually, talking about the Wizards of Kremlin. I don't know if you actually heard about that movie. It's not really about Vladimir Putin, but it is about Vladimir Putin. He was just in the movie as Jude Law. Jude Law as Vladimir Putin as Jude Law. How I felt. Hey, you know what? It was the emoji. It looked like it was a dancing emoji. I think that's the reason why I was just like, it's unleashing dancing. Unleashed Dance would be a cool name though too. All right. So, Wizards of the Kremlin. So the movie is basically Jeffrey Wright. His character's name is Roland. I don't know what Roland does. I don't know if they actually say, to be honest with you. But he goes and visits Paul Dano's character, Baronoff, and they just sit down and they talk. And I don't know. It sounds like Jeffrey Wright's character Roland is actually a reporter, but he's not really a reporter. Like it's weird. I don't know if I just missed that whole interaction of what they were, but it's literally just them sitting at like a coffee table and then they're just talking. And of course, you just go through a bunch of flashbacks and a bunch of periods where you hear Paul Dano narrate his character and what he ended up doing. To get to that part, he talks about how he was a artist that went to a young kid who, just like everybody else that's kind of like in college, goes out to like house parties and is trying to make a name for himself. And then he goes to a house party where it's like a movie TV house party, if if you want to say, because I've never been to one of those and I don't know if I necessarily was cool enough to go hang out in one of those things. But people were doing drugs, they were drinking, they were partying. There was like a girl singing, and then there was this girl who, like I said, there was this girl who was singing, and Paul Dano's character Baronoff sees this girl who's singing, and she's singing, but not really singing, because she even makes the joke that she's not really singing, but she's got this dude who's butt naked, acting like a dog that's sitting next to her. Or actually, I say sitting, but just kind of doing dog things next to her. And the thing is that in this world, in this time, we observe and we don't judge. Ever. And I say that because going through things that I've gone through in my life, and I'm sure people have with their life, I truly do feel that, you should live your best life. So whatever kinks that you have, you should go with it. Even if you want someone to go poop on your chest, if that's what you're into, by all means, do you. Not what I'm into. I don't know why it's the first thing that kind of came up to mind. Mostly because I think the reason why it became the first thing that came to mind is because we listen, but we don't judge. We listen, we don't judge. But how do you like to be that guy that was the naked guy that wore a dog collar and acted like a dog, though? You think about that, right? Like, go in there and be like, well, I am auditioning for Vladimir Putin. And then you get done with your audition and you're just like, so do I get the Vladimir Putin? Do I? And they're like, no, I see you more as a naked dog dancing around. It's like figuratively speaking, no. I want you to be a naked person wearing a collar, acting like a dog. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't know if you guys are sports fans, and if you guys are, maybe you'll get the reference. But this dude came off the bench, scored like 20 points and like 10 rebounds and threw like 5 assists. I'm telling you what, when he was committed to this whole being a dog thing. Because I was like, holy crap. This dude ran around doing dog things while this girl was half singing. And I believed every minute of it. Like, this was his thing. This was his jam. In fact, kudos to whoever you are. I don't know. You're probably not listed in the IMDb. And I'm not really going to look. But kudos to you, because I do think that you can respect this. So the girl who was singing, there's so many Russian names. I'm gonna jack it off, but I think it's Ksenia. I think it's her. Ksenia. I feel like it's her. Anyways, so Baronoff, Paul Dano's character, goes up to her and they have this normal conversation, which is actually kind of funny because I was sitting there thinking to myself, well, they're just having normal conversations, but sometimes when I say it's funny, right? It's funny because I was watching a video on YouTube and there were these two people who were having like this normal conversation, and it was one of the girls, she was a chess master, and there was this dude who was just playing her, and they were just having a normal conversation. And in the comments, of course, comments always, sometimes comments W, sometimes, actually most of the time comments L's. But In the comments, there dude was like, this dude was rizzing her up, and I was like, wow, they're really having just a normal conversation. You want to call that rizzing, huh? And I thought the exact same thing when it came to this. These two were having a conversation, and I was just like, well, that's interesting conversation. He ended up getting her into wanting to listen to what he had to say because he wanted her as an actress inside of his play. They go outside. She walks really fast ahead of him, and he's just like, why are you walking so fast? She's like, why? You can't keep up. And then they start making out. They start making out. And bullshit. I call bullshit. That shit never happens. Never happens to me. Can't happen to me. Not smooth enough. Ah. I'm going to drink because I'm so angry about this. All right. So they make out. Obviously, little montage of their relationship, all the little fun things that they go through. And then he meets a friend, a friend. Paul Dano's character, Baronoff, meets a friend named Dmitri. Dmitri is kind of wild and outlandish. And you see Ksenia. I want to call her Alicia because that's her. That was the girl that played her. She ended up, her and Dmitri kind of talked to each other. And then, of course, Baronoff like saw the immediate energy between the two, and he knew that it was only a matter of time that she was going to leave him for Dmitri. And let me tell you something, because why? Why? Because I'm going to tell you what. Why is it that this movie... Oh, no. I'll get myself back to the seat. Eventually, I'll get back to my seat. Why, in this movie, did you have to touch on every insecurities that every guy can possibly have, or every woman or everybody in a relationship could possibly have, where somebody cooler comes along, someone that has the same energy as the girlfriend that you had, that you literally spent months loving, goes, and you can kind of, and you see it. You see the love fall out of her face and start admiring this Dmitri dude who's wanting more power, who's wanting more money. And she's eating it up. And it's like I don't know if it's just cheap insecurity, but I feel like it's cheap insecurity where you're just playing it off, where the dude's like, he's okay looking, but he's got more money than you, and he's more outlandish than you, and more party-like than you. So there's this insecurity where you're just like, oh no, I feel you. I feel you, Baronoff. This is heartbreaking. What's going on? Why is this happening? And Baronoff breaks it off with her, and she's just kind of like, you're doing what? It's like, well, I'm breaking up with you. And she's like, okay. It's like, is that it? Is that all you're going to give me? And she was like, well, it's been over for like months. And then just walks out. Then he just leaves. And I do joke about this, but I do have seriously mean this. So, philosophy time. I do feel that sometimes when it comes to relationships and love, a heartbreak or something like that will happen, and a person can either accept their pain and just kind of go through the motions until it goes away, or they could become the Joker and just become the villain that is deep inside him, dormant inside him, and that was unleashed because of this. It's like a horror, or it's like a, I'm not say horror movie. I always want to say horror movie, but it's like a villain unleashed origin story. And you Baronoff, you go through Baronoff and you end up finding out Baronoff is just like, well, he talks to his dad. His dad just like, yeah, I know you guys broke up. And then Baronoff was just kind of like, I want more power. I want more. And there you go. Birth of a villain is partly through heartache and just horrible insecurities that you want to delve into this particular situation. Really struck me in the heart, as you can tell. Maybe you didn't. But I was like, ouch. What a bitch. But I think in every breakup, any situation, you're always going to have to treat somebody like they're the villain. Even though it makes no sense whatsoever. If it's just a way to cope and get yourself past the situation, allow yourself to cope and get past the situation. But in this instance, heartache. So now you start seeing Baronoff go into quitting the arts and going into TV, where he's starting to learn that utilizing the TV and finding a way to sensationalize it and make it so that people will watch it, whether it's reality TV or whatnot, is very, very important. He meets this dude named Boris Baronovsky, who was played by Will Keane, who is kind of a mentor of ways, but a guy that is in TV who is like the head of one of the TV stations, and he learns how to use media to help spin situations and help manipulate situations to where you can get a particular person to become president, and or manipulate him to where the media will go behind a particular person, which was actually really cool and really interesting in its own right, and also kind of hits closer to home, right? Because you do feel that sometimes that social media or even just media in general, like, you can obviously tell there are biases, and during this time, there's biases always, but during this time, I would imagine you didn't really think media sources were biased. Of course, I didn't really know. Hey, uneducated possum, how's it going? Thank you for the lurk, my friend. I actually shouted. I'm not very good with these little shout outs, but I shouted you out, told people to actually check out your page instead of being on mine, because I'm about to just go on this whole long rant about these two movies. But was sending them your way. I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw it into the chat and send them your way. If you guys don't know, an uneducated possum, also Ace, who was in my chat too as well earlier. Great streamers, check them out. They want your love. I appreciate you hanging out, but they're giving them love more important to me. All right, so at this point you run into Baronoff, and he's starting to get the gist of understanding how to spin the media to help get things to happen for elections, etc., etc. Then you get introduced to Vladimir Putin's character, who is played by Jude Law. Vladimir Putin was basically the main guy of Central Intelligence, the main spy person who really didn't want to do anything about being the president of Russia, like, at all. But between Baronoff and Baronoff and Boris Barovsky, like, they talked him into doing so. But there was a speech that Baronoff said, Paul Dano's character said to Vladimir Putin, that actually talked about the X and Y axis of just, I guess, government, if you want to say it that way, that if you allow government to, or if you allow everything to be on the X axis, there is obviously more independence, but then there is a chaos and an imbalance there. And that it breaks things down. So that's the reason why the Y axis would be your authoritarian, like actually getting rule, obedience, and everything done for the government of Russia. And everything you see throughout this movie is in part of the concept of what Russia is, our country, Russia, everything, old Russia, etc. And getting to the point where they're like that. And when you see young Vladimir Putin's character in this particular movie, hesitant, doesn't like talking in public, doesn't like long speeches, Jude Law fantastically played this role. And I will also say Paul Dano was probably the highlight of the movie, to be truthfully honest. Like, I didn't really know much about him as an actor. Like, the only movie that I really remember him in as the Riddler in the Batman movie. And seeing him do his role here and doing it well, I think that I'm probably going to check out some of his movies and whenever I get a chance. And I'm sure he's probably been in movies I've seen that I just don't really know that was him. So here's where everything kind of kicks up, right? Because now they've convinced Vladimir Putin to actually try to become the president, a prime minister of Russia. And Putin looks over at Baranowski and was like, he thought this dude was old, an idiot, and he didn't believe that he should be subservient to an advisor, but an advisor and everybody else should be subservient to him, which is where you started getting the little hints and ticks of this particular government that Putin was going to go. He wants Russia to be Russia. It's kind of like if you ever watch Hero with Jet Li, where the emperor in Hero wants a one China and will do anything to all the other the other parts of China to get them to surrender and lose to mainland China, to be one China, one whole entire united group. And in a sense, that's kind of how Vladimir Putin was kind of seeing it too, as well, as that he wanted one Russia that is ruled, that has consequences and ruled with an iron thumb. Right, wrong, indifferent. That's just how we saw it based on what was going on during his time. So you do get to see kind of like that play, and it was kind of cool to see that overall arching narrative between like the things that Paul Dano had to do as far as manipulating situations, and how Putin also had to balance not only his initial instincts, but also the instincts of Baranov, who was in his ear and just kind of spinning everything. Now, I would say that all the scenes that they did and everything that they did as far as the spins and how they manipulated each other, like outside of that, like it didn't break the realm of possibility, and it also didn't break the realm of disbelief to me. I felt like each one of the actors that played in this particular movie actually were really strong. It's funny because Jeffrey Wright's character is really only in there for a certain mere period of time, where he's just asking questions and talking throughout that particular throughout the entire movie. His character was probably the weakest character, but then again, his character really wasn't there. His hair character was more or less the guy that pushes the plot going forward. Like he asks questions, he he challenges Paul Dano's character about the different things that Paul Dano is saying and what the media was saying or what the country was saying or what the US is saying or what NATO was saying or whatever the different countries or Ukraine was saying during that time. One of the topics that I talk about is perspective as well. Perspective of everything that when it comes to, and I think this movie does a really good job of just talking about perspective, because perspective, and when I say this, what makes something good, what makes something evil is the question. And one of the things that I ask people all the time, so what makes a person crazy? And instinctively, you know how to say, you know how you feel about it. I know how I feel about it because we learned it all the way through when we were younger. But in reality, if there was a purple butterfly that was flying and only you didn't see it, but everybody else saw it, then you would be the one labeled the crazy one or colorblind one. But if there was a purple butterfly flying and everybody saw it but you, and it was really a real purple butterfly seeing it, then the perspective is you're crazy, not everyone else. When we talk about murder and death and people getting killed, we look at it as bad, whatever the situation may be, and other people might look at it differently. I say this in a very in the middle kind of way and just outside looking in. And I say we, I mean the US as a country will look at North Korea and think that they're brainwashed and with propaganda and everything to be saying that North Korea is this and that. And yes, I know the fact that they are, but if you were born in North Korea, you wouldn't have that same thought process. If you were born in North Korea, to you, you're the good guy. I think there was a conversation or an interview that was with Christoph, in the guy that played in Inglourious Bastards as the Jewish hunter, the Jew hunter. He said, because somebody had asked him, was like, what did you do to prepare yourself to be the villain of this particular movie? And he said he didn't think he was the villain. To him, he thought he was the good guy doing what he had to do the good things from their perspective. And I always took that to heart because I really do believe that sometimes it's just perspective, how we look at things. Somebody might not see it that way. And right, wrong, indifferent, that's just, I do feel like that's how the world works. And in this movie, they do a good job of seeing perspectives, doing perspectives from the Russian side, perspectives from Putin, also perspectives from Paul Dano. And I was Baranov, which is actually kind of funny because once they got to a part where Vladimir Putin, the main person that was going to run against him was Dmitry, which is the guy that stole Baranov's girl. Like, Putin was just like, I want you to arrest him. I'm going to have him arrested because we tapped his phones. He said all of this. He said I was a nothing. And I get it. But not even from Putin's point of view, but from Baranov's point of view, I was just like, you want me to arrest the dude that stole my girl? A part of me was just like, working with a dictator, being very vindictive, working with the dictator, you're going to tell me to go arrest the dude, the billionaire that took my girl for his oil? That's a dilemma. It wasn't really a dilemma because I would totally arrest that motherfucker. As vindictive as I am. Would you guys do the right thing? Would you? I mean, technically speaking, you probably couldn't because if you went against Putin, he was probably going to do things to you. So it wasn't likely to. But would you do it with, resistance, or would you do it with an extra oomph because, he took your girl? I'm being serious. I'm asking. So there are little things like that that happen throughout the movie where you're just kind of like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. There was a few lines in this movie that resonated with me because after Dmitri got arrested, then Baranov actually runs into his girlfriend again, and they had this whole conversation. You can see that they're going to get back together, but that also begs the question about like, would you really? So Danos Karabaranov says something that really kind of resonated with me today, and it was kind of the theme of my head for probably about 4 hours. And he said that the future does not care about you. Like, think about that. The future does not care about you. I was like, damn. That's so true. Like in my mind, I was just like, that's so true. Because you got to live in the now and the present in order to work your way to get to the future. But the future doesn't care. You could die right now and it doesn't matter because you're not. It was crazy. It was an interesting line, and it was a good line. And there was another line he ended up saying towards the end, dealing with the future as well. But we'll get to that once we get to that. So he ultimately, overall, The Wizards of Kremlin is a story about Baranov and his rise to power, but ultimately there's also an underlying love story that's in this entire movie, and a lot of questions you had to ask between Alicia and Paul Dano's characters. Plain, it was like, I want to equate it to like Batman and Catwoman, or Catwoman and Catwoman. Like, it's a complicated relationship. They fell in love with each other almost at first sight, for the most part. At first sight, they were together. Then she cheated on him and left him for somebody else, richer, more fun, etc., etc. Had her moments, and then they get back together. But then she's the person that kind of brings him back to earth, if that makes sense. Like, she's the one that kind of brings him to the situation where he's like, it's like, well, you ruined Russia. You ruined the country I loved. You ruined everything. I want you to know you were part of this. And no matter how much you're wanting power and being in this situation, you're the reason for this. Which is kind of weird in a way. I mean, I didn't really think about it when I just said it, but that's kind of how it was. Is at the very beginning, she was kind of the muse of him wanting to become something with more purpose, because before he was just interested in his art, but now he wanted to be more, I wouldn't say powerful, but more influential in a situation. Of course, that's like his father and his grandfather, who helped take care of the other two presidents of Russia as well. But there was an underlying love story, and it was an up and down roller coaster. So it was pretty interesting. I'm always really bad when it comes to endings or ending things, so I am gonna say in this aspect, whenever I look back on this particular movie, I do want to watch it again. So my answer to the press play, I would press play on this movie again. I do feel that this movie is a very mood style movie. I don't know if you know what I mean when I say mood style movie. It's not a movie that you're just gonna throw on in the background and listen to, like Waterboy or like different comedies or even action movies that you might check out. It's more of a movie that's, I would equate it to like Interstellar or Inception, or just one of those movies that I think that you really have to be in the mood to really want to check out or want to actually watch. I do find it really good. I think the actors did a really good job of playing the characters. So absolutely, I would press play on it. I don't know if you guys would want to press play on it. I don't know if I told you things that are good, bad. I do feel the pacing of this particular movie is not exactly the fastest in the world. Like, I do think that you would have to go into this movie with an open mind, and also with that open mind, you have to go into that movie going to yourself. It's like, maybe it's finding things in the movie that fits your journey in life. Like, it was for easier for me to attach to like the love story, the politics, not as far as politics like true politics, but more of the games that you have to play with different people in the world, because that's just kind of how it is. Like, for me in my world, I've worked for corporate, and not really at a super high corporate level, but I've worked for corporate enough and worked with multiple personalities. Um, for me, I work in retail, for working with different store managers, working with different stakeholders, I guess that would be the best way of saying it. There is a game of politics and manipulation, and I hate to say manipulation, not really manipulations, but spin that you have to play with people to get people either to buy in or to be successful or to understand the ultimate goal. So it was interesting to me in that aspect, because there were a lot of things that I saw, and I completely understood why they did it and why they were doing it. And I know that it doesn't change. Like, they say high school is like the high school drama, the high school politics, the high school like dynamic, the ability to go through a network is a thing, and that doesn't leave. That's probably the most important thing I would ever tell anyone to learn or to do back in high school, if I had known, because you're going to utilize that same skills, those same networking, those concepts same social concepts in your life outside of it, because it doesn't leave you. And sad in a way to say, but true. So I thought all that was really cool. The love story was really cool, and then just kind of listening to the story at the very end, um, he ends up Baranov has a kid. He has a little daughter, and he was playing with his little daughter, and he said something about how, he I forgot how he said it. How it wasn't he controls his kid, but his kid controls him, because he fears everything more in his life now than he had ever feared before, because of his child, which struck a little close to the heart for me, because I've always wanted a daughter, and I've always wanted to, like every storybook ending that I think a lot of people growing up, you wanted to grow up, have a wife, and have kids. And I know that I'm still in a particular age where I can still have a wife and have kids. But the thing is that, that age gap between someone who can have a kid and myself is only growing and growing and growing. And I am not a Dimitri, nor am I a Bill Burr, or a person where I feel that I am in a good position to do so. And I do feel that some my disabilities in my life right now scare the whole living shit out of me when it comes to the idea of wanting to have kids. So that one did kind of hit close to home to me. But I feel that this movie was very enjoyable to me, because there were a lot of things in this movie that I could particularly pick out and add into my life as the journey that I've expressed through my entire time. Whether it's like the insecurities of the love situation that he dealt with, or being able to navigate through the waters when it comes to just people, politics, and thanks even friends, because they're his friends who are people in this movie that are also deeply involved with Putin's like lifestyle, his career and stuff like that that he has to navigate too. And I found that stuff really interesting. And I also found like the different events that happen really cool too, because as much as I don't dig into politics or foreign affairs, it's just kind of cool to see and learn a little bit, even if hopefully some of it is being true, that it could have possibly happened. Then also seeing just kind of the portrayal of Russia, because I do want to check out Russia at some point in my life. Not 100% sure when that'll ever be. I would like to visit China, or like, Asia first. A lot of the different areas in Asia. But I would press play on this movie. I would be interested in hearing if you guys would press play on this movie. But those are the two AMC movies. The Screen Unseen. Definitely recommend The Sheep Detectives. Tell you guys now. Family friendly movie. Should take your kids. They'll hopefully take some life lessons from there. And The Wizards of the Kremlin. You'll enjoy it if you can find something about, or if you can find things in this movie that will resonate with you, or if you just like politics and the rise of power of somebody, and then someone being an advisor and being able to manipulate things. Hey, what's up, Sarah? I was shouting out to your stream, telling people to actually go to your stream instead of hanging out in mine. So appreciate you popping in saying hi. I appreciate that. Actually about to end it right now. But yeah, nah. Didn't expect a love story from Wizards of the Kremlin. Really I had to battle my my insecurities there. I mean, it's kind of a cheap insecurity, right? Because it's, rich, fun-loving dude, maybe a little taller than you, even though I'm not short. But it is one of those things. I'm just saying. But check out those movies. I enjoy these Screen Unseens. Hopefully, you guys will be able to have some in your area. You should check out too. Maybe you guys can check in with me when I do these little talks, and then we can talk about it. I would much rather talk about it with everybody. I need people to talk about it too, because I don't want to go on Reddit. Reddit's a thing. It's, or X. I don't have an X, and I just lurk on Reddit. So I keep my socials to a very minimum. But thank you guys for hanging out again. Like I mentioned, you should check out Sarah's page. You should check out the Uneducated Possums page. And you should check out Lancet's page. Lance. Right. Ace's page. I call it Unleashed Dance. The Unleashed Dance page. Unleashed Ace page. These guys are great streamers. They deserve the love. I appreciate you from hanging out and just listening to me ramble. Eventually, I'll make an actual YouTube page with cool edits and actual like things put into it. Because I have this weird humor in my head that I like to unleash, and a lot of it is just creativity, right? Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time, and more likely, I'll see you guys on your page.